So, Derek Southall, founder of Hyperscale Group. We're a technology, digital and innovation advisory and implementation business. I feel a little bit sort of, I'm in the wrong place on this because I'm between all the people with the fantastic products and between the people with the money. So I'll do my best. What I'm going to talk to you today about, you've heard some great content this morning, but I'm talking about the practicalities of making this happen. Okay, now there's quite a few slides here. You can have a copy after, and I'm not going to dwell on them, but in short, I had a role in a large professional services firm that grew like mad. I was the person responsible for making this stuff happen. Okay, so again, this will give you an idea of the different roles I did. We started off at 27 million turnover in one office. We ended up in 18 offices in 10 countries, turnover 450 million. And what I'm going to try to do is to be very honest with you about what to do to make this stuff happen, and basically download 25 years experience to you in 20 minutes. Okay, so that's the plan. I'm principally about making data-driven services happen. I've tried to, I gave a lot of thought to this. I'm trying to distill it into 5 key points. Okay, some of the challenges and why you need to do this, some of the models which I've seen which have been effective, the people aspects and the communication aspects. And then what I'm going to do at the end is tell you, I think, what is a really simple framework based upon getting 3 things right. Okay, and again, can happily talk offline to expand on all of this. It is just a 20-minute presentation. Challenges. Okay, we've absolutely got to do this. There's no choice. So law isn't, for example, is a $900 billion global business, and it's one of the last analog businesses standing. There is technology, but virtually none of that technology goes to the data-driven piece about getting under the skin of legal delivery. The bottom slide shows you there is a huge opportunity here in that broadly, as a professional services business, you are linked to having the right number of people at the right time with the right skills to make money. The minute you move into the data-driven services area, all bets are off. Higgs and Sons could become the biggest firm in the world. These are some of the revenues per employee, some of the tech businesses. Facebook, 1.6 million per employee. Wouldn't you love that as a professional services firm? And then on the right, basically, there's been a massive change in the makeup of the Fortune 500 and FTSE 100, all moving to tech. That's where the money is. And again, it just shows the potential. The biggest professional services firms of today will not be the biggest professional services firms of tomorrow. A small business can scale like mad, but in short, we've got no choice. None of this is easy. And again, I'm not going to dwell on this, but just talk about this. This is something called the digital learning, which a number of you were seeing. But just in simple terms, if you break technology down into 3 areas, you've got your digital basics, which is all your infrastructure stuff, your PMS, your document and email management systems, things like that. Your enabling technologies to stuff to make you go faster and quicker. That could be case management, document assembly. And then your digital futures is more your data-driven services. The problem is several fold, but basically most firms struggle to get beyond the red. And actually they've only got enough people to deal with the red. I think the second thing is that if you do a project in the red zone, you can have a small number of people doing a project, say 4 people, that benefits 300. Whereas the more you move to the data-driven services, you're getting under the skin of every practice area that you need domain knowledge. So basically you end up with 300 projects benefiting 4 people. So there isn't a professional services firm out there, I know, with all of the resource to do what they need. So this stuff is difficult. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the models to make this happen. There's a first bit about the right tools, and this is not an argument between one AI product and another. Okay, but this is more conceptual. So when people sell data-driven services, you see some fantastic demo and it looks wonderful. You see the Learjet and you want it, and you look at the price and think, okay, that makes sense. When you sign the contract, this is what you get often. You get a box of bits, and if you're lucky, after 3 years, you can just about build the Meccano plane in the bottom right. People are selling too many toolkits, which is a nightmare. And what you have to do, you've really got to look at the market quite carefully in your choices. So your toolkits, you will not have, particularly as an SME, but even the large firms have found this, they haven't got the time or money or even the data sets to implement them. So it's a complete waste of, you go backwards, not forwards. What you have to end up with, in my view, if you want to make this stuff happen quickly, is you need to end up with products and turnkey solutions and low, no code embedded solutions. So just to give you a couple of examples of that, I mean, actually one you've seen this morning, Manzama, circled in in red here, law geeks, you can run through effectively documents through their platform and actually automatically leverage data-driven services. There's a product called Avail, and actually this was launched by a law firm, but this was fascinating, where they trained up some AI to extract data from leases, and they now flog that as a turnkey solution. So and they're beginning to sell into firms, because even the large firms are finding they haven't got the time to make all this stuff happen. Doc Juris, absolutely great example of a productized embedded AI that every firm out there will deal with documents. This is a toolkit that basically lets you build in your playbook and effectively uses AI to mark up incoming contracts. You know, supposedly saves about 50% of effort if you're an experienced contract person, but is a great example of embedded AI that's effectively within a platform that effectively you can create something that gets you going pretty quickly. Ditto, there's something called Kim Technology, and Kim Technology is it's a no-code platform used by the likes of HSBC, Vodafone, Ernst & Young, and it lets you configure things quickly, lots of business processes, dashboards, but it's also got embedded AI that you can switch on to do things. So you got to look more generically to these things. There's a big total cost of ownership and total effort point in these products that you're looking at. Other models that we see, the job that you will have really, it isn't to do stuff, it is to make the right stuff happen, okay? And so other models which we're seeing in the marketplace, we're seeing even big firms recognizing they can't do this, so they partner with an alternative service provider or some consultancy, as I think Chris mentioned. We're seeing contracted AI, where people, the IT suppliers, the AI suppliers in particular, do not want to sell services. They want to sell AI because it's more profitable, and the services around it are difficult. So that's why you get them to provide you with a turnkey solution, which they will do. Interim resources as well, which again Chris has talked about. These are models which people are adopting. Other things that there's a piece of not only about the product, but how you make this happen within your business. So you have to sort of effectively recalibrate your business. You have to reboot it, and you have to turn around and say, well, hang on a minute, the world has changed massively. What am I expecting from this practice group? Okay, now I'm just putting some examples out there. I've got millions of these, but digital fitness. Are you expecting them to become more digitally efficient year on year? I suspect you are. The world has changed. Is their job just to sweat the asset or to improve their group? What metrics are they working for? Are you still using the same metrics as you used 15 years ago? Okay, there are loads of modern metrics. So a simple example would be revenue from newly released products in the last 3 years is a metric which we're in discussions with a whole range of businesses about that sort of thing, which are modern metrics. ARR, annual recurring revenue from new products launched. So you've got to start sort of getting to yourself, in this new world, which is very different from the world 15 years ago, what are my expectations of a group? What are my expectations of a professional, whether they be a lawyer, an accountant, or whatever? And then once you've got that, you can then execute. So this is a simple model I've used, and literally I got a firm to perform just on the basis of a page where you broke innovation into 3 areas, where you've got innovation in law, innovation in business delivery, and then you've got innovation effectively in using sort of technology and data-driven services fall into the latter. You work out what they are, you give them some examples, you define what success looks like and indicate their maturity. You put a 3-year program in place. That model created a global business to perform. It was simple, it was on a page, it leveraged the competition between your groups, and it made them aware of their responsibilities that they could cascade. There's other approaches which we see again to making this stuff happen. So there's something called the 5-5-5 approach out there, where broadly you get a team of 5 people, you give them £500 or £5,000, you give them 5 days or 5 weeks and give them an output. And so people are using this sort of stuff to experiment and get things moving. Google Ventures, they tend to do a diverse team and actually do lots of short sprints based upon a week's effort. And again, you can have all these slides to read all the detail. Amazon have a press release process where they start by writing a press release, and what they then do is this is the ideal press release they want to issue from the business, and then actually work backwards within a set time frame. And there's all sorts of hybrid approaches. So again, there's lots of models out there, but you sort of got to get the groups and your practice groups moving and realizing their responsibilities and measuring how they're performing. People's really interesting in this area because data-driven services, that they're not like any other services. So to be clear, you've absolutely got to massively engage with people. This is an area where lots of professional services are used to IT being done for them. This sort of IT has to be done with them because you need the domain knowledge of everybody in a practice group. But you speak to a practice group and they'll all nod their heads and they'll think this is wonderful. They'll listen to AI. 50% of them will be worried about their jobs. Another 20% will be worried that they haven't got the skills. So immediately, without being unkind, you don't get the engagement. If anything, some people can almost like sabotage projects. So this is something great from PwC that they pushed out, which was really about, look, you've got to get this narrative going with your people. You've got to keep it going. You've got to, maybe your obligation, as Chris talked about reskilling, your obligation, you can't protect jobs because jobs will change factually, but what you probably can do is protect people if they will reskill. The team makeup is absolutely vital as well on all of these projects. So this is a Gartner thing where you've got your samurai, which is the traditional way of doing projects, very ordered, very process driven. A lot of these projects need ninjas now. They need more erratic people. They need people who are short bursts of energy, creative thinkers. And the reality, and I hate it when you see in a professional services firm somebody who pitches themselves as the guru, because seldom is it a guru. It is about getting the right teams in place. And actually what I would recommend to you is you almost create these sub-teams within each practice group of the right brains, just making stuff happen. We've heard lots in recent years about the having innovation people. And again, the models, it all goes back to teams. So again, if you have technologists trying to drive this, they never succeed because they often try to do this they've got great skills, but try to do this in a very ordered way. They can never get to the outside of the circle. They've never got the domain knowledge. You bring innovation people in, often they've got the domain knowledge, but they never build for permanence in the way an IT person would. So again, what you've got to do is create these right teams, and it can't be one team for the firm. You've almost got to, you want some of that, but you need sub teams actually guiding this. A really neat way of bringing this together was the guy called Lars Suderman, who's the former head of research and development at Procter & Gamble. And he said there are some things that you need where you've got a long operating history in a static environment. So this could be upgrading your PMS, where you need a very ordered approach, predict and plan. And then there's this dynamic environment, which is data-driven services, AI, where it's almost like you spaghetti it, you throw the spaghetti on the wall, does it stick? And you need a project program that actually reconciles these two things, and teams which reconcile these two things as well. Just going to talk about communication. Communication has always been important in the world of IT, but it is absolutely vital in innovation and data-driven services because it goes to the root of service delivery of domain knowledge. Acritas, phenomenal organization, research organization in professional services, their consistent feedback is the biggest barrier to innovation is engaging lawyers. And there's two reasons for this. The one of which is professional services people are really busy and it's always client first. That's a challenge. And then secondly, you've got this sort of fear about moving on to anything else. So everything you do, you've got to break down this barrier. And however you communicate, multiply it eightfold, David Morley of Alan Overy, they've done some fantastic things on innovation, and what they did, they just created this big central vision. A&O will become the most advanced firm in the world. Stop. Something everybody can buy into, almost like the David Mace to get everyone running in the same direction. We've seen all sorts of things, again, how people have communicated. So this is not in this data-driven services sphere, but this is another example where we've done some work on rich pictures, where basically people create this vision, and you do a bit of consultancy work with some artists that we use, and broadly you get to a point where you have basically a complete vision for the firm and what you're going to become on a page, and this is brilliant for bringing on your people. It's brilliant for talking to clients. So the Big Four use them. You've got the lots of pharmaceutical companies use it on pitches because it's one slide that just gets everyone moving in the same direction. Other things you've got to do as well. I mean, you've got to sort of, this not just one-way communication. You've got to be cascading what you do, but getting ideas up and engaging with people, because if not, you're never going to get the engagement to make this stuff happen. You cannot do this stuff without the domain knowledge of people. So there's numerous platforms, one of which is Crowdicity, which is basically, if you want a separate platform, it's an idea management software. I think you could do something very easily with the likes of a Scott in 365 or in Yammer. There's so many things you could do with this, but you've got to get this two-way engagement going. This is something that again, this could easily be replicated in Yammer. This was done in Workplace, which is a sort of the Facebook equivalent. But broadly, and again, it's trying to, if you don't communicate in this area, what happens is people lose confidence. They don't know what's going on. They get caught out by clients. They assume there's nothing going on. So you get all these different random suggestions coming into you from every direction. So that's, you know, a whistle-stop tour of some of the components you've got to get right. I'm now going to tell you, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, right, you've got to make this stuff happen, Southall, really quickly, present me with a relatively simple model, okay? I think it'd have 3 components. The one of which is an ecosystem canvas type, and I'm going to give you an example of that, and that's broadly about getting your foundations in place organizationally. You've then got to get your capabilities sorted, and this covers a problem with data-driven services. You can't move on to data-driven services until you've got your basics in order, so you've got to get that sorted. And then so that's about making it, planning and making it happen in your spend. And then you've got this modular building comms model, which is about how you present this to your people and how you present it to your clients, okay? So ecosystem canvas, okay? I have read everything out there on innovation, and I would say over 90% of it is pretty pedestrian, pretty weak. There is a guy called Soren Kaplan, who I think is brilliant. And broadly, I did something completely separate to him before I discovered this. And I have to say, I just sat there thinking, oh God, I've wasted 9 months' work, because actually this guy's pulled it together really well. But he basically says, look, to make anything happen in this area, you've got to get these 6 things right within your business. So these are organizational foundations. You've got to get the metrics right, the rewards and recognition right. You've got to get the structure and process right, the leadership. You've got to be dropping the stories out, the core technology capabilities, the people. You've got to bring these on and engage. So step number 1 before you do any of this is just say, right, work through that, get your plan under each of those headings, get it on one page, work out what you're going to do and execute. Second thing is, and apologies, this diagram is very colorful, but to simplify it, okay, there are 3 sorts of technology. There's digital basics, which is all your sort of practice management and document email management, your enabling technologies, your case management, workflow, and then there's the data-driven stuff we're talking about, okay? What you do here is broadly, you work out which of these capabilities you need. You then measure these again about where you're at now, and that's the blue box on the side. And then you work out where you need to be. And the idea being, you plan, you can't do everything, but you broadly work up this incremental plan about how you're going to get from A to the last column over a period of time. What should happen with this model, and what does happen with this model, is that you get to a point where you gradually move more of your investment from red to green. Rather than buying 1,500 different products driven by the lawyers or individual accountants who come in your door, you end up with one product geared up to each capability. You spend less money. You actually work more efficiently. And what you can then do, if you look at the grey boxes, you work on a model where you actually, each year, you're looking at your new investment and you're planning accordingly. And what you're trying to do is to drive down the cost of the red while upping your investment in the green. And then the only metric, in my view, that makes sense, you look at your cost per desktop within the business. And actually, that's what you sort of drive across the bottom. Final thing is this how you communicate. And again, this is, forgive the second A&O example, there's a Pinsent Masons example, but once you've got these capabilities, you've got the platform, you've built the foundations, you've then got the sort of the plan as to how to do it, which you can articulate to people and explain to people. You broadly then modularize it. So this is geared up to business capabilities, but can be technology capabilities. You present the Lego bricks to your people and to your clients. You explain, look, this is how we're going to do it. These are the capabilities we've built. And it makes a quicker to deploy model. So we've done a few tenders recently working for clients. The firms that do this, it is just so powerful. It is beyond belief. But it's vital, and this is part of the explaining to people what tools are available to them, because if not, the work is pointless. So I'm about to shut up because before Ian tells me not to. But in short, if you adopt this 5-step plan, it works. Some of you might be thinking, oh, we're an SME law firm, we can't possibly do this. I think exactly the opposite is true. Within the last week, we've spent time with Reena Sengupta, who runs all the research for FT Innovative Lawyers, working with the biggest global firms in the world. They are doing nothing over and above what I've just told you. And I turned around and said, I asked a key question. I said, look, Reena, does this mean the future is all about big global firms because they've got the ability to invest? She said, absolutely not. We're seeing some phenomenal stuff from the smaller firms who are focused on agility. They've got the ability to scale. They haven't got this level of overhead that many of these larger firms have got. So my final message to you is, I think the future is bright. I think there's some phenomenal things you can do to scale without any of the baggage of the bigger firms. Ian, that's my neat segue onto discussion. Shall I cease to share?
No,